So we're back down to cold temperatures. It rained really hard yesterday afternoon, and then it turned to cold, and now the bridge is all iced up. So gotta be careful walking on the bridge. Everything's just a mess. It's cold. Yeah, I'm complaining. They said that the temperature was supposed to go back up like 2 days after this cold spell, but it's not. It's going to stay this cold for a week, and then next weekend it's supposed to warm back up. So it's only a week. I was just enjoying those warm spring temperatures again. I knew I shouldn't have. I kept telling myself, don't do it. Carolyn and I have been taking a walk around the property every evening during those warm temperatures. That's been kind of nice. We haven't done that in a long time. It's not a big property, but we spend a half hour out here just enjoying everything. So I'm going to come out here and feed the chickens. It rained so much that their chicken run's pretty wet. So this morning they wouldn't come out of the coop, so I gave them some straw. I laid some straw out so they would come out. Then they went back in because it was windy, I guess. I don't know. But I'm going to give them some corn. Maybe they'll come out and have some corn. A few of them come out. Yeah, I don't think they like the mud. We'll get them through it. We haven't lost any, which is a pretty big surprise. I've always lost chickens to something. We used to let them free range, of course. And so, you know, I'd always lose a few. But we've got them pinned up and nothing can get to them. So over the last few days, I've been talking about propane. As you know, I just got a dual fuel source generator. And I really like it, but I'm not going to use it until the old one went kaput. Once it's used up, then I'll switch over to a new one, or I'll use it as a backup. Maybe the old one needs maintenance or it's not running right and I need to fix it. We don't get out to get gas. I can put propane in the new one and run the new one until I can get some gas. So just different scenarios that I can use the new one, but for the most part it's going to stay in the camper. And so I've done a lot of breakdown analysis of the cost of propane versus gasoline. And right now, even with gas prices going up, gas prices still beat out propane cost. No matter how I slice it. If I go to Dollar General and do an exchange, it's a lot cheaper, of course, gas prices are. If I drive many miles away, propane drops down from $20 down to $14, but gas prices are still cheaper. Gas prices would have to exceed $5 a gallon just for it to be worth to put propane into the generator. At that, there's still gas costs in the truck that I got to go and get it. We never go to that town. And there's nothing saying, this is all hypothetical now, that the propane costs won't go up with gas prices. It could very well go up because propane is a byproduct waste of oil production and natural gas production. So there's nothing saying it won't go up. If gas prices go up, propane costs probably will go up also. Now, the other thing is propane is not as efficient as gasoline. I showed you that on the instructions on the new generator. With gasoline, the running watts is 1800 watts, or 1850, I think. And with propane, it's 1650, so you lose 200 watts. So that, not that I'll ever use that many watts, but it's just not as efficient. Unit to unit, whatever that unit is, BTUs, gasoline produces more BTUs than propane. That being said, propane, I do want to mention that if you're using propane for heat, it is the most efficient heat source there is. Natural gas, all that. Probably not wood. I don't know. I've never really compared propane against wood, but you get the idea. That being said, wood's free. So I've been really trying to analyze this. Well, of course, a lot of people said that I really need to start thinking about different options for propane because we're using more propane nowadays, me and Carolyn. And I don't know where they're getting that at. We don't hardly use any propane. We have 2 Coleman stoves that we use propane on. One of the stoves that we use for cooking, the other one's just strictly for canning. With cooking though, Carolyn does a lot of the cooking with wood. I've showed you her setup several times. I mean, it's pretty primitive, but it's a nice setup. She's got a rocket stove over there. She does a lot of cooking on that. Probably the most that we use propane for is making coffee. And then we have our water heater. It uses propane, but it's an on-demand water heater, so it only heats the water that we want hot. It doesn't use a lot of propane. And then finally we use it on a Mr. Heater Portable Buddy. Now we primarily heat with wood, but this winter from October till now, which is March 6th, I think we've used 2 tanks, so $40 for the entire year. I mean, heating cost is just not that much. Primarily the only time we use the buddy heater is if the temperature outside is 50 degrees, it's just a little chilly inside. I'm not even sure we've used 2 full tanks. I'm not sure how much we've used, but it's not been a lot. So we just don't use that much propane. So now, I know people are gonna say, well, now you got the propane generator, now you're gonna use a lot of propane. No, I don't intend to use the propane. Well, one of the suggestions, well, actually several people suggested this, is that we need to get a 500-gallon propane tank and have someone come onto the property and fill it. That's a good suggestion, but I've used propane before, and so I'm going to give you a little history on this. In case you're thinking about it, you may want to research this before you actually say, okay, that's what we're going to do. And so I called around, and I'm going to tell you what I found. And it confirmed what I already thought. First of all, as a side note, I don't want anybody on the property. Ever. No one. Secondly, we don't use that much propane. So 500 gallons is what a small propane tank would cost. You might be able to find some smaller, I'm not sure, but I'm just using what I researched. I didn't spend a lot of time doing it. So 500 gallons, if we use 4 gallons a month, I would be surprised. I don't think we even use 4 gallons a month. If we had 400 gallons, we could just round that up to 100 months. But I may die before we use it all. We could go out and get a 100-gallon tank. There's some bigger ones you can get, but the 100-gallon tank, if I wanted to muscle around, I can go and get refilled. That might be worth it. Going out to that town I was telling you about, it's real far away, and filling a 100-gallon tank and bringing it back. Now, one of the things that I thought about when somebody said, hey, you need to go get propane tank, is the last time I got propane, I called the propane company. It was a rental property. So they've been out there before. The tank was owned by the company. They just set it on the property. It's their tank. And then you pay them to come fill it. So you can't even have a different company come out. If you wanted a different company, they would have to come and replace the tank. Well, it was rental property. So, I didn't have any choice. I had to use that company. Well, they sent somebody out to inspect the house to make sure, even though they've been out there every time a new renter comes in, they had to come out, because I was a new customer, and check all the connections. They checked the furnace, they checked the stove, the water heater, all that. They had to check it all. Then they filled it. They're not very reliable. I want to be clear on that. The first time I had to take off work so I could meet them at the house, they didn't show up. So I had to do it again. I chewed into them. This is my time and money. They don't care. They just don't care. They know that they got you by the what, and so they push you around. So I live in this little tiny house. They're not going to pass the inspection. I'm not going to be able to hook it up to anything. It's just going to sit there. And I'll hook it up to a 20-pound tank. I'll try to fill a 20-pound tank off of it. They're not going to let you do that. I'm sure there's a ton of laws that say that you can't do that. So I would have to go out and buy a blue flame heater or something so they can come out and hook it up. I'd have to have a plumber come out probably and do it, certify it. So when I called, and that's what they said, yeah, they'd have to do an inspection, and it had to be a certified inspection. Well, again, there's no point in me doing that at all. I'm not going to do it. So be aware that if you think you're just going to get a 500-gallon tank, because one person said that, and set it out in your yard, and you're just going to fill your 1-pounders or your 20-pounders, at least here in Missouri, they're not going to do it. My dad, he was a manager of a RV park, and he was a certified guy. He did all the training and all that so he could fill propane tanks, and at his RV park. He had to get recertified every few years, take online courses all the time. I mean, this is pretty serious. It's not just something like, okay, I'm going to tank and I'm going to set it out in my backyard. There's just a lot of restrictions with propane. Propane is very explosive and pretty dangerous. I had a landlord in Iowa years ago. I'd lived there for about a year. And he was building a doghouse. And he was digging around. Well, I guess he hit the line from his propane tank. All that propane siphoned out of the pipe underground and ran into his basement. Well, the smell was gone because the ground filtered it all out. So on, what was it, Memorial Day, I don't remember, Labor Day, he had all his family members over in his house. He went out and started the barbecue grill, and the house was gone. It was a brick home. I drove out there one day. You wouldn't even know there was a house there. It was gone. It was just completely gone. So him and his daughter are the only ones that survived, and they were both outside. So, no, I'm pretty satisfied with the decision I made. I mean, it's a lot of math to keep it economical, to make sure that you're staying below cost of what it is to be on grid. I know a lot of people have these ideas and they throw them out there, but before you do it, make sure that you've studied it, researched it, and understand what it is you're planning on doing. I mean, there are so many things that could just run up the cost to make it just unmanageable. The other thing is all the reviews of the guy that runs around this area had terrible reviews. I mean, he must be the biggest jerk. And again, it doesn't show up on time and doesn't care about the customer. So if you'll check out this up next box, I'd really appreciate it. Take you over to my other channel. So I hope I can inspire you to do your research when you're living your dream. Thanks for watching.